That expropriation of the third world has been going on for 400 years, brings us to another revelation, namely that the third world is not poor. You don't go to poor countries to make money. There are very few poor countries in this world. Most countries are rich. The Philippines are rich. Brazil is rich. Mexico is rich. Chile is rich. Only the people are poor. But there's billions to be made there, to be carved out and to be taken. There's been billions for 400 years. The capitalist European and North American powers have carved out and taken the timber, the flax, the hemp, the cocoa, the rum, the tin, the copper, the iron, the rubber, the bauxite, the slaves, and the cheap labor. They have taken out of these countries. These countries are not underdeveloped, they're overexploited.
Almost 40 years later, and this still holds true. When we hear the word colonialism, some may associate it with an outdated system of exploitation and coercion, one that took place a long time ago, and although it was wrong, we grew past it and learned from our mistakes. But unfortunately, I'm here to tell you that, although you may believe that this depravity is ancient history, it's not. It's just advanced with the times. Instead of subjugation by way of guns, whips, chains, and soldiers, the imperial forces of today use something that seems a little cleaner, a little more professional. They use debt. Instead of colonialism, we've moved to a system of neocolonialism. Some of the many antagonists responsible for condemning the developing world to a cycle of debt and exploitation are none other than our international financial institutions, specifically the IMF and the World Bank.
During World War II, you'd think that the BIS would not be allowing the German representative of the Reichsbank to be involved in the BIS, but you'd think wrong. So that what the BIS was during World War II was basically a bank where both sides were financed. And that's why people say that all wars are bankers' wars. And this is what this book proves. Thursday, May 1st, 2025, Maneco 64, home of alternative economics and contrarian views. We're going to look at the Bank for International Settlements today. I even have a live stream for that topic. I'm going to put it up here so you can go through it. And I was happy to see Catherine Austin Fitts mention the Bank for International Settlements in her interview with Tucker Carlson. I think there's not enough publicity about the nefarious nature of this cartel. Of course, there's always talk about OPEC, that it's an oil cartel, that it's a nefarious institution and run by the Arabs and the Russians, right? But this one is the granddaddy of all cartels. It's been running since 1930. And I want to do a refresher on this. I spoke just over a month ago about this international banking cartel and the fact that, yes, the head of the snake is the BIS in Basel, Switzerland. So we're going to go through it again, and I'm going to talk about the origins of this bank and how it's evolved. And I'm going to prove to you that all central bankers who go there every other month for meetings, how they're betraying their own countries. Yes, betraying their own countries. It's it's a very bad situation, in my opinion, and very few politicians, very few commentators mention this bank. Of course, that's probably because it's something you don't do, right? But there's none of that here on this channel. We're trying to expose, yes, this nefarious institution. So before we go further, just wanted to look at a few things that happened yesterday. I saw that the US GDP data was very weak. GDP was expected to grow at an annual rate of 2.4% in the first quarter, and it came out at minus 0.3%. So another quarter of negative growth like this is a recession, even though they'll probably change the definition again, just like they did in 2022 when we had 2 consecutive quarters of negative growth. But one thing that caught my attention was the GDP price index. Well, that was expected to rise from 2.3 to 3.1%, but it was actually 3.7. So that's showing me that you've got a shrinking economic pie and continued rising prices. It's not inflation. The inflation, as I said yesterday in my video, is the growth of the money supply. Be as it may, it's a stagflationary environment, just like the 1970s, and I think it's going to be a lot worse. Why is that? Well, because in the 1970s, there wasn't as much debt around as there is now. So yes, I've seen there's a lot of volatility in gold and silver. I'm not concerned. I'm holding on to my gold and silver for dear life, as I've said in the past. Nothing changes. So yesterday, actually, it was another beautiful day like today, and I was fortunate enough to go play golf with a good friend of mine that I used to work with in the city, and we're still in contact. He's a gold bug, and he invited me to go play at his new club that he joined, and it was a long drive. It's in the Essex-Suffolk borders. It's actually in Suffolk, beautiful part of the country, and we had a really nice time. And then we had dinner afterwards, and I got home just after 9 o'clock. But yeah, it just showed me how beautiful England still is, the countryside. Yes, so there you go. Just wanted to put that out there. Back to the Bank for International Settlements, and I'm going to go back to its origins, because I think that's really important. Because if you know how an institution was created, you might be able to understand how you might bring about its demise or its abolition, closing down, right? And then I'm going to talk about some events that the Bank for International Settlements has been involved in over the years. And I'm going to recommend the book that Catherine Austin Fitts talked about in her interview. Very good book. And then there's another book here that I think will help people understand what the bankers are all about, and it's Lords of Finance, which is a really good book too, and they touch upon everything, including the Bank for International Settlements. Origins. Well, we have to go back to that unfortunate event, World War I, and I spoke about that. I've recommended recently a book, Hidden History, about how World War I is really prepared years before it started by the British, because they wanted to stop. They were paranoid about the Germans overtaking them and becoming an empire, even though I don't think the Germans were trying to do that. But be as it may, World War I resulted, of course, in the loss the German loss during World War One. And the French, especially, were very vengeful, and they set a really high hurdle, so to speak, in terms of reparations. They really punished the Germans with impossible terms, really. And by, let's say, by the by 1930, things weren't really great. Or even before that, of course, we had the hyperinflation, Weimar in 1923. And the French were acting like Shylock. They wanted their pound of flesh from Germany. And so there were a lot of negotiations. There's the Genoa Convention in 1922. And then they had to kind of come to some kind of international agreement, and that was between France, Germany, Britain, the United States, somewhat, not totally, because the United States did not join the League of Nations. That's a very important point here. But anyway, by 1930, there was a conference to talk about the German debt, and also reissue some debt so that it could help them with the reparations. And they decided by treaty to create the Bank for International Settlements. Yes, by treaty. And the international settlements had everything to do with the World War I reparations. So you would think that once that would be solved, that this bank would be dissolved. But I think the war reparations from World War I, I'm not sure when they were all settled. They might even be settling it today with very inflated currency. But you would think as well that that's the only thing they would focus on. But the globalists, the people who run the world, and Catherine Austin Fitts, I think she was very careful to mention names. And yes, there are all the obvious names out there, like the Rothschilds, the Rockefellers, and so on. But I kind of agree with her. It could be even, they could be just fronts for much more powerful entities, like she says, multi-generational entities, and I think she's right. But so they created this bank by international treaty, and I've spoken about this before, and you can go to my playlist and look through all the videos. But I've gone through the original statute, founding statute of the Bank for International Settlements, and that's on their website. And the major shareholders were the central banks of these major countries like Italy, France, Germany, Britain, Japan, Netherlands, Belgium, I think. And all these central banks at the time were actually private. So they're not even national entities. They were private entities run by the bankers. Why didn't the Federal Reserve... Why weren't they a founding member? I noticed that Catherine Austin Fitts said that I think it was 1994, the Fed got shares in the BIS. Well, because the United States was not part of the League of Nations, and this was done via the League of Nations mechanism, this treaty. But there were... I think 3 American private banks who were also major shareholders, along with the national central banks. And you probably might guess one of them is a bank that's still very powerful today, that never gets into trouble. They just pay fines for their nefarious wrongdoings. They were the banker for, what's his name? Jeffrey Epstein, right? That's J.P. Morgan. J.P. Morgan. There's another bank, the First National City Bank of New York. That's Citibank these days. They were major shareholders. And there's also First National City, or First National Bank of Chicago. So that's how the Americans got around it. So that's the origin of this bank. So if we want to get rid of this bank, we have to have an international conference and abolish it. And there was an international conference, believe it or not, called the Bretton Woods Conference towards the end of World War II. And they found out a lot of nefarious things that you can find out in this book. I'm not making this up. It's all documented here. The author, Adam Libor, he spoke to the BIS. He got all the documents and he wrote it. Basically, during World War II, you'd think that the BIS would not be allowing the German representative of the Reichsbank to be involved in the BIS, but you'd think wrong. So that what the BIS was during World War II was basically a bank where both sides were financed. And that's why people say that all wars are bankers' wars.